Hello everyone, my name is Farhan Ahmed and I'm a lecturer at DHA Sufa University, Karachi, and today we'll be discussing business communication. As you're aware that I've already created a few lectures on the topic of business communication, and we have gone through introduction to business communication and different forms of business communication. So in the very last lecture we were looking at business communication in terms of channel, where we looked at verbal communication and non-verbal communication. And in this video, we'll be looking at communication in terms of style, formal and informal. So if you remember, in the previous video, we did discuss business communication in terms of levels as well, where we discussed intrapersonal communication, interpersonal communication, and so on and so forth. So today we'll be discussing communication in terms of style, and when we look at the communication in terms of style, we have got formal communication and informal communication. And when we discuss formal communication, guys, what we want to understand, there are some attributes, there are some characteristics of the formal communication. So formal communication, first thing, it has to be official in nature. So when we discuss the formal communication, as you can see here, it is by nature official. So any official communication will fall into the category of formal communication. Apart from being official in nature, the formal communication also passes through predefined channel. So for example, if you are studying at a university and you want to see your results, what is the source that will give you the results? It might be the notice board, that is a predefined channel. It might be the learning management system, that is the predefined channel, or it could be the admissions office. So each organization defines some kind of channel through which they will be informing the customers, the clients about the information, and that's called predefined channel. And then we have got systematic. Formal communication is systematic in nature. So if the communication is flowing from the top hierarchy to the lower level, it will follow a system. It will be time consuming, as we can see, yes. It will be a time-taking process, and apart from that, it will be a systematic process, that who gets the information first, who gets to decide the information, and then how it is passed on to different managers. And the last thing, in formal communication, the source is known. We know the source. If we do not know the source, then it means that it's not official communication, because those communication events which take place where the source is not known are called informal communication. So what are the attributes and characteristics of the informal communication? First thing, it is unofficial in nature. It is not official. The second thing, there is no predefined channel, unlike formal communication. In informal communication, you don't get to see where the information has come from. And one of the classic example of informal communication is the viral videos and viral messages, where you don't know what is the source. And you don't know even if the information is there, you cannot verify the credibility of the information. You don't know whether the video is still fake or it is real, it is authentic or not. So that's very important. And we have been discussing, as a good manager, you're engaged into communication process to make sure that your day-to-day affairs are sort of like successfully managed. So you want to ensure effective and efficient communication. You want to work in an environment where there is a viable communication. There are no barriers to the way of the communication. So if there are barriers on the way of communication, and you see that you're engaged in, you encounter many unofficial messages and informal communication, it means that it is going to hurt your organization. It is going to hurt the performance of the organization. It is going to hurt the employees. It is going to damage the reputation. So that's very important, that you want to be very cautious of the fact that the informal communication does not take place, because when the information is disseminated and that has no credibility to it, it causes confusion, it causes demotivation, it causes many other things that we want to avoid as a good manager. So yes, the source is not known, so I'll put source not known, and it's not systematic. Okay, it is not systematic, and it spreads like a jungle fire. And one of the challenges that the managers nowadays are facing is the spread of rumors, the spread of unverified information. So that's another thing. So we want to understand, guys, formal and informal communication goes side by side, because informal communication does not mean it's always negative in nature, but informal communication is also known as grapevine communication. It is also known as what? Grapevine communication. So that's another way to put it. So we understand, guys, informal communication might be, when we discuss the environment, it might be if you're sitting in the canteen, you're having a light chat, it might be classed as an informal communication. Environment does have a role to play. But is it something that you're in the office, you're in the formal environment, and you're having a chat about some movie or some TV show? Does it make it informal communication? That's another challenging area. So we understand these are the attributes that we'll stick to. I can put environment here. Yes, that is another thing that makes communication formal or informal, but it depends, as I've mentioned. It does not necessarily mean if you're sitting in the canteen and you're talking about the office affairs, it becomes formal communication. Environment does have a role to play. So far we have understood what are the attributes or the characteristics of formal and informal communication. And now we want to understand the different types of communication, formal communication and informal communication. So very first type, as far as the formal communication is concerned, is the upward communication. And then comes downward. Then comes horizontal. And comes diagonal. Okay, these are the types of communication, formal communication, that we know, and we want to understand this thing. So if we create an organization here, and that's a vertical organization, we have different hierarchies. Maybe just say there's the vice chancellor right at the top, then we have got registrar, and then we have dean, then we have HOD, then we have teachers, then we have staff. Okay, so this is the hierarchy that we are facing in this organization. Okay, now when we discuss the upward communication, let's go with the downward. Mostly the orders are given from the top authority to the people who are subordinates. So if the superior is sending any instruction, any notice, any directive, it will be received by the by the people in the different hierarchies, by the subordinates who are working for him. That's downward communication, and that has to be formal in nature. It is time consuming, it takes time to assimilate. And similarly, this upward communication from the people who are subordinates, when they give their feedback and when they sort of like request something, when they sort of like give a recommendation or suggestion, all these things are the example of upward communication, and it goes this way. So too much of downward communication, if there's too much concentration on downward communication, if the concentration is too high, it makes this leadership style autocratic leadership style. If only orders are coming, notices are coming, warnings are coming, feedbacks are coming, instructions are coming, and there's no provision for the upward communication. The top authority is not allowing you to sort of like have a two-way communication. So if it is one-way communication and there's no balance between the two, upward and downward, of course it becomes autocratic. So if there is downward communication and upward communication, there's a balance. It is democratic culture, democratic leadership style. So this is the communication that also translates into the leadership style of an organization. So we understand now two types. Now each hierarchy, if we talk about the departments, for example, this is the hierarchy, and I pull out one of the hierarchies. So I just pull out one of the hierarchies, and I say that there is a sales manager. There's a sales manager, and there are employees under him: sales agent 1, sales agent 2, and sales agent 3. So we see there are different sales agent in one department, and the boss is right at the top. So when we discuss all these sales agents, when they are talking to each other, they are on the same level. This is the example of horizontal communication, a communication taking place on the same hierarchy, on the same rank. So if I give you an example, if I'm your teacher, you're my student, I'm giving you an assignment, you guys are receiving downward communication. And if you guys are giving your feedback, that's an upward communication. And if you guys are discussing an assignment along with yourselves in one group, that's the example of horizontal communication. But where does the next communication come in? If we talk about diagonal communication. So diagonal communication is between two hierarchies. So if this is a sales manager, and if there's a HR manager, and that's a different department. So this is a different department. Diagonal communication takes place between two hierarchies and two different departments. So if HR manager is receiving an application from a sales agent from the sales department, and this is 45 degrees, mind you, that's the example of diagonal communication. It has to be between two hierarchies, and it has to be between two ranks. So if I give you an assignment and you do not understand the assignment, you don't bother to consult me, and you consult a different teacher in a different department, you are the students at a lower rank, and you are consulting the teacher on a different rank. And that will become the example of diagonal communication. So these are the four types of formal communication that defines the leadership style, and it also plays a very vital role in the performance of the company. So we want to understand now the informal communication. So we have gone through formal, and we have gone through the characteristics of the formal communication as well. Let's look at the informal communication. So informal communication, the very first one we have is called single strand. And the second one we have got is gossip chain. The third one we have got is probability chain. And the last one that we have got is called cluster chain. Now, if we look at all these types here and we discuss them, single strand will be the communication that is being spread by one source to other party, and that will only be between one person to another person. It cannot be one person and coming and giving the information, which is rather a rumor because it's an informal communication. For example, you call someone, come here, and you tell, don't tell anyone. In exam, this is something coming, and you're talking to your friend. And this is the example of informal communication moving from one person to another person, and that person tells another person. So this is a single strand. It will only move in one strand, and that can be dangerous but not too dangerous for the organization, because the spread of the information is slow, and sometimes people do not take the word of a person who is speaking about any rumor or any news that is negative in nature. So that's one thing that we want to understand. That's a single strand. And managers have to be cautious about all types of informal communication. They want to beat. It is healthy as well, because when you're socializing, you do have informal communication. But when it is rumor, when there's a propaganda, when there's misinformation, these things can hurt you. When there's bullying going on, when there's mockery going on, when there's insult going on, discrimination, all these things stem from this thing. So you want to understand, you've got to be very careful in a cross-cultural, diverse environment where people have got different sensitivities, and mockery can be very, very sort of like damaging. Bullying can be damaging, racism, discrimination, so all these things. So we understand gossip chain, and we live in an environment where people have body shaming, name shaming because of many diverse attributes, your ethnicity, your color, your sect, your gender, many things are there. So you got to be very careful with this one. So we discuss gossip chain, in which the source of the information is one, but the receivers are multiple. So for example, someone in the department comes and says, oh, our sales manager has quit the job. And that's an informal communication, that's a rumor. but it is done in the form of the group. Multiple people get to know this thing. So the concentration of this one is higher than the single strand, which is difficult to, which is dangerous, but not that dangerous. But this one will take the entire department down in one go. So you got to be careful with this one. And as a good manager, you want to make sure you contain the spread of such type of information. Now comes the probability chain, where you have the same source and you have passed on the information to someone, and that person might pass on the information in the form of the gossip chain, and the other person might pass on the information in the form of the single strand. So in this case, if you look at this one, A has informed something to F, and this F has resorted to single strand spread of communication. Unlike B, who has also received rumor or informal communication from A, but he has preferred to sort of like spread the communication in the form of the gossip chain. So the probability is unknown. What pace the communication will take, how it will accelerate, how far will it go, and how will it go, what form it will take in terms of, you know, the propagation. So that's very dangerous. So that's why we say in some department rumors are already there, and in some department people are still waiting. Really, did this thing happen? And that's something you want to be very careful with as a manager, that you want to make sure, okay, you want to make sure that you do not let your employees get into this thing. And cluster, well, this forms in the form of a cluster, and if I am doing the right depiction here, it goes in the form of the groups, and and there are different clusters where information is spread in the same way as I have depicted here. And if you take the example of 2016 US elections, where the company called Cambridge Analytica was assigned a job to sort of like manipulate the masses. So as you're aware, Cambridge Analytica ended up stealing the data of 87 million Facebook users in America, and they influenced the masses by showing sort of like ready-made ads. They showed customized and tailored ads to the people. So if I was the proponent of Donald Trump, they would show me the ad which reinforces my belief in supporting Donald Trump. And if I was the supporter of Hillary Clinton, they will show me the ad which sort of like discourages me from supporting her. So this is where they did psychographic profiling, and they maintained 5,000 data points against each individual. And that's why I say Facebook is still a crime scene, and it should be investigated that how Cambridge Analytica got into Facebook in 2011, and how this professor, I don't want to go into the Cambridge Analytica scandal right now, but we want to understand how the data of Facebook people was sold, and how this company got into there, and how they weaponized Facebook to influence the 2016 elections, and how Donald Trump got sort of like elected or selected rather, and how US-China trade war started, and how it hurt the entire world economy. So just imagine how this information can literally target the entire world. And in the age of artificial intelligence, how difficult it will be, and how dangerous it can be in the future, that the people who have got power, how they can manipulate our opinion, how they can influence our opinion, how they can mold that our opinion. So that's very dangerous. So we have gone through in terms of channel, verbal and non-verbal, in terms of levels, intrapersonal, interpersonal, and so on and so forth. In terms of style, we have looked at formal and informal. And the last one, in terms of environment, guys, of course, internal and external. So some of the examples of external communication that we have is the annual report, website, all these social media platforms like Facebook, Twitter, external newsletters, email blast. So I can write down some of the annual reports that you have to present to the different stakeholders, especially the shareholders. What's the standing of the company? Social media. Of course, the website of the company. Research That could be one external factor. What else? Advertisement, blogs, external newsletters. So these are the examples of external communication. In terms of internal communication, of course, company's mission and vision statement. So the company's strategy, that's mission statement of the company, what is the vision and the mission. And employees manual, that can be very handy, employees manual. So that's another thing. Apart from, of course, intranet of the company where the information is there, training seminars, training and development, the intellectual property of the company, intellectual property, business secrets, laying design, many other things, business recipe. So intellectual property or patent, which is one such thing in intellectual property, could be the part of the internal communication. So guys, we understand anything that is contained on the company's website, or sorry, company's intranet, or undocumented rules, tacit understanding, the norms of the company, the culture, that is also the part of the internal communication. So we have looked at business communication so far thoroughly. We have discussed the introduction, we have understood the importance of business communication. We have said it is the lifeblood of an organization. We understand it has evolved over the last 100 years from print media to electronic to artificial intelligence, from digital to artificial intelligence, and now we are seeing further development in this area. We have looked at the communication in terms of channel, in terms of style, in terms of levels, and in terms of environment. These are the types of communication we have covered, and in the next lecture we'll be covering the principles of communication. So until then, look after yourself and stay safe. Thank you so much. I'll see you then.